Hello students, welcome to the second part of this class on water balance. We are covering competency number BI 6.7, which deals all about water and electrolyte imbalance as well as many more things, how the fluid homeostasis of the entire body is being done. Now if you have not watched the first part, the link of that class is given in the description, so you can watch that part and then you come back here, or you can watch this and then go back there. All right, so first, in today's topic, we'll be briefly discussing about thirst. Now, minded, today's class will concern about the hormones that control water balance, and I will go in very brief so that you can mainly answer MCQ and SAQs, that is short answer type questions. Okay. So, what do you need to know about thirst? That is, it is the most important factor maintaining normal fluid balance. If you're not thirsty, you will not drink water, right? And the drinking water is the major input of water into our system. Okay. So, what controls thirst? What triggers thirst, right? There are two factors. Number one, 1% increase in osmolality. Okay, we have discussed in previous class what is osmolality, what are the factors containing osmolality, both intra and extracellular. Please go through that. Okay, so that is osmolality change. So that osmolality change has also another factor, that is 5% decrease in volume. If due to anything the osmolality remains same but the volume, okay, the solute and solvent concentration is the osmolality. Okay, is the relation between them, how much amount of solute is dissolved in unit kg of solvent, that is osmolality. But suppose the osmolality remains same but there is a huge loss of fluid, it may be hemorrhage, it may be anything, then thirst will be triggered. So it means the body fluid is decreasing, so then also thirst will be triggered, right? Next, so what are the implications? Lack of access to water or poor thirst. Okay, if you don't have access to drinking water, or if due to some reason thirst reflex is poor, that leads to hypernatremia. Naturally, the solute concentration will go high and it will lead to hypernatremia. Okay, mainly extracellular cation that is present is sodium, that dictates osmolality. We have read in previous class that sodium and osmolality goes hand in hand, right? And next, and the last thing that you need to know in relation to MCQ and Viva purpose is thirst contributes to hyponatremia in fluid loss edematous states, that is triggered by low intravascular volume. Just remember this line, you will get MCQs from this line. Okay, so if there is any hyponatremia, that is decreased sodium in case of fluid loss, or if there is edema of the body, thirst is the main contributor to that. Okay. So now we will move on to the topic of discussion today, that is what are the hormones that regulate water balance, and there are mainly four. Strictly speaking, all hormones are proteins, peptides, right? So number one is aldosterone, number two renin angiotensin system, antidiuretic hormone, and atrial natriuretic peptide. Okay, so these four are the ones. So if you are given an MCQ where you you need to choose something odd, that is all except, so you need to make sure that all these are selected. Okay, that is something other than these is related. What do I mean? If the question comes in this, all thirst is controlled or water balance is controlled by all of these except, then you need to select something other than this. And if there is multiple correct answer type, water balance is controlled by, then you have to select one or two or three or four of these options. So let us right away move into aldosterone. We know, every one of us already know by now from our +2 lessons, that aldosterone is a mineralocorticoid. It is secreted from zona glomerulosa, right? And the main function of aldosterone is reabsorption of sodium. Okay, it causes reabsorption of sodium. So sodium comes in and potassium and hydrogen goes out. So there is a counter current mechanism by an antiport channel. So it sucks in sodium and lets the potassium out. So this thing you need to remember clearly. Okay, if you remember this, most of your queries and MCQ and concept wise questions will already be solved. Okay, so quickly we can look into the mechanism of action of aldosterone. You should know that aldosterone is basically the final common path that acts via renin and via angiotensin. So first renin is secreted from the kidneys. It helps in conversion of angiotensinogen to angiotensin. Okay, angiotensin 1 gets converted to angiotensin 2, and angiotensin 2 helps in release of aldosterone, and then finally aldosterone acts. Okay, so what happens if there is fall in blood pressure, there is volume loss, then we need to conserve sodium. You get my point? If there is a fall in blood pressure, we need to raise the blood pressure. So when blood pressure is low, we need the body to work in such a way that the blood pressure goes up. How can it go up? By increasing the sodium concentration. How can it increase the sodium concentration? By reabsorbing more and more sodium. So if you look at the urine, the urinary sodium will be very less. That is what is happening in the first figure. So when there is fall in blood pressure, more and more renin is secreted, more and more angiotensin 1, angiotensin 2 and aldosterone. So action of aldosterone is high over here. Okay, and this is leading to reabsorption of sodium, and hence in urine sodium excretion is less. So in body sodium is more, blood pressure goes high. This is a reactionary response. The reverse happens in high blood pressure. So if the blood pressure is very high, what we need to do? We need to lower the blood pressure. How can we lower the blood pressure? By letting out sodium. So the action of aldosterone will be very low in that case. That will cease to act. It will stop acting. So there will be less renin secretion, almost no renin secretion. You can see very thin line, and that will result in low action of aldosterone. The action of aldosterone was to reabsorb sodium. So if there is no action, if there is no or low action, it means excess sodium will be relieved from the body, and the urine will be high concentration in sodium, because we need sodium to let go from the body, and that way the blood pressure will be lowered. I hope now the concept of how aldosterone controls sodium balance is very clear. Next we go to ADH. Remember, the action of renin, angiotensin, aldosterone is similar. So now we go to ADH, and now let's see what ADH does. Okay, few basic facts about ADH. It is secreted from posterior pituitary. We all know that oxytocin, ADH, these are all posterior pituitary hormones. What leads to secretion of ADH? High plasma osmolality is a stimulation of osmoreceptors of hypothalamus, and that leads to ADH secretion. Remember, diuresis means in passing of urine. So diuretics means the drugs which helps in more and more urine flow. Antidiuresis means we will control the volume of urine, means we need to conserve water inside the body. You get my point? So ADH, what it does, it concentrates urine. The volume of urine, the water content is lowered if there is high action of ADH. So just think like that. When will the body need to conserve water? When the osmolality has gone up due to some reason, when there is low solvent or low water due to some reason. So if there is high plasma osmolality, it leads to stimulation of osmoreceptors. It will tell, the body will tell that please, the water content in the body is very low. Please conserve water. Please don't let the water get out. And then ADH will act, and they will also conserve the water. Remember, aldosterone was conserving the solute. ADH is conserving the solvent. Okay, beautiful. So it increases water reabsorption. Contrast, if we compare it to aldosterone, it was increasing sodium reabsorption. ADH causes water reabsorption in distal convoluted tubule and collecting duct of kidneys. What is the relation? Again, 1% rise in osmolality triggers ADH production, which increases renal reabsorption of water, right? And the same thing is also triggered when volume loss is more than 5%. We already told what are the factors that regulates thirst. If there is more and more thirst, again ADH will be triggered, secretion of ADH will be triggered, and water conservation will be done in the body, right? And this is the action of ADH. So ADH controls fluid regulation. Aldosterone was controlling sodium regulation. Again, you can relate this on your own if the concept is very clear. What is happening over here? You can see there is excess sodium inside the body. Excess sodium means osmolality is very high. We need to maintain a balance, means we need to conserve water. So if solute is high, we need to conserve solvent in an equal volume so that the balance of osmolality is maintained. So what happens? Hypothalamus, the osmoreceptors are triggered, and from posterior pituitary, ADH is secreted, and it acts via AVP. AVP is arginine vasopressin. That is the mechanism, right? You don't, even if you don't remember that, remember ADH is secreted from posterior pituitary, and it leads to conservation of water via the kidneys. So it tells the kidneys, don't let excess water out. So there will be scanty urine, and thus the scanty urine, the excess water will be diverted back to the system, that is the extracellular fluid, and then osmolality will be maintained. Reverse occurs when the osmolality is very low. If sodium content is very low due to hyponatremia of some reason, body feels that okay, in some edema or anything, that okay, there is excess water, we need to let go of excess water. What will happen then? Again, the osmoreceptors, the triggering of osmoreceptors will be stopped. There will be no ADH secretion, and normally what happens if there is no ADH secretion? Regular flow of urine will happen, and hence you can see H2O, that is urine production. Excess water is being thrown out of the body via the kidneys, excreted, not thrown out, excreted via the kidneys, and then the osmotic balance will be maintained. So please make sure the concepts are clear regarding aldosterone and ADH, and you can easily answer Viva question, MCQ questions about sodium balance as well as water balance. Sodium balance is controlled by aldosterone, and water balance is controlled by ADH. Okay, so again here is a diagram that ties up both of them. You should know one thing, that the renin is secreted from the kidneys, and angiotensinogen is secreted from liver, and angiotensin 1 is converted to angiotensin 2 by ACE, that is angiotensin converting enzyme, that is secreted from the lungs. So there are 3 organs that are involved, right, in the angiotensinogen mechanism. Apart from that, posterior pituitary is involved, zona glomerulosa, adrenal cortex is involved, kidneys are involved, from heart, natriuretic peptide is involved. So almost all organs are involved when we compare when we compile the total sodium and water balance, right? So you can see what's happening over there. Renin is secreted from the kidneys, angiotensinogen is secreted from the liver, angiotensin converting enzyme is being secreted from the kidney, and finally we are getting angiotensin 2. Also, thirst is playing a role with in response to increase in ECF volume. So hypothalamus, aldosterone, everything. So this is a very popular diagram. If you have understood the previous 2 slides, this slide is very easy to understand. So what will happen if the blood pressure is dropped? All these factors will come into play and the blood pressure will rise. Okay, so if blood pressure is dropped, the body will let go of excess fluid and the body will conserve sodium, and that will lead to high blood pressure. Remember, if the blood pressure falls due to low volume, there will be no water loss. Okay, water will also be conserved. So that's the balance between water and sodium that the body actually senses via both the osmoreceptors as well as via the electrolyte receptors, volume receptors okay. So this diagram you should practice well, and if a long question comes on water balance, you can surely draw this diagram and then your question will be answered. You should note a very important thing over here, that most student often makes mistake due to similarity in the spelling. Over here in this chapter, we are actually discussing the hormone renin. That has one N and it is secreted from the kidneys. It is related to fluid balance and hypertension, whatever we are discussing over here. However, in a textbook, you will find another term, that is RENNIN. It is also pronounced as renin. However, it's a proteolytic enzyme that is seen in children in gastric juice. Okay, so don't make this mistake of writing double N in RAS system, that is renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system. Okay, that is not right. So single N, kidney, blood pressure, water balance, renin is one single N. Okay, so here is the basic gist. This often comes as an MCQ in INI-CT, that is AIMS. So how many amino acids? Strictly speaking, you don't need to remember how many amino acids are there, but you should have an idea that the whole big angiotensinogen is actually degrading, and ultimately it gets shorter and shorter. You can see angiotensinogen has 453 amino acid. So when renin acts on that, it cuts off a major chunk and it leads to angiotensin 1, which has only 10 amino acid. Angiotensin converting enzyme, that is ACE, acts on angiotensin 1, and angiotensin 2 has only 8 amino acid. And then finally angiotensin 3. Remember, this is not given in all textbook, and even at your level angiotensin 3 may not be required. If you know till angiotensin 2, that is fine, because it's the active principle of working in sodium balance, right? Because angiotensin 2 can act on aldosterone, right? Lead to release of aldosterone. However, since we also need to know about how they are degraded, angiotensin, it is converted angiotensin 3, which has got further less amino acid, that is 7, and finally angiotensinase converts angiotensin 2 and 3 into their degradation products. So the major part of the class is over. Now we will look into two applied importance and then we are done. The first applied importance is what are the clinical importance of ACE inhibitors. These are very common group of drugs, okay, ACE inhibitors that are used as antihypertensive medicines. So we have those who have high blood pressure, these ACE inhibitors or ACE inhibitors, that is commonly pronounced, are given as antihypertensive drug. Not only angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors, angiotensin receptor blockers, ARBs, are also important antihypertensive drug. You will be taught in detail in pharmacology, so you will come across the name Ramipil, Captopril, Telmisartan, Losartan. Okay, those are very common names, but for now we just need to know what is ACE and what role they play in hypertension, that is essential hypertension. So just read along. ACE is a glycoprotein present in lung. Okay, ACE inhibitors are useful in treating edema and congestive heart failure. Various peptide analogs of angiotensin 2, an antagonist of angiotensin converting enzyme, are useful to treat renin dependent hypertension. Angiotensin 1 is inactive, 2, 3 are active. So this is also important. Excess angiotensin 1 in body, there is no tension, but excess angiotensin 2 and 3 are problematic. So we need to prevent conversion of angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2. Who does that? It is done by angiotensin converting enzyme. So ACE inhibitors. Okay, you get my point? So this we need to inhibit this step, angiotensin converting enzyme, via the inhibitors. If we give inhibitors over here, then the blood pressure will be controlled because there will be low angiotensin 2, right? And lastly, the last hormone that we are discussing today is natriuretic peptide. This is basically a peptide, a protein polypeptide. You know what is a peptide? Peptide bond between two amino acid. So this is a polypeptide hormone that is secreted from right atrium. Okay, you know in heart there is atrium, ventricle. So this is atrial natriuretic peptide. Okay, also known as type A ANP. There is also a second type, that is type B, that is secreted from the brain, that is also known as brain type or type B natriuretic peptide, that also plays a major role as a therapeutic agent to treat congestive heart failure. Nevertheless, we should know 2 or 3 lines about ANP and BNP, that is polypeptide hormones secreted from right atrium. How they are secreted? When due to some reason heart is stretched. So just ask yourself, when the heart can be stretched? When there is excess fluid in the body. So excess fluid, heart is a balloon. If you pour excess water in that, the wall of the balloon will be stretched. Imagine a balloon filled with water. So there is excess cardiac stretch will lead to stimulation of natriuretic peptide. So the name natriuretic means it will excrete sodium, right? So it leads to excretion of sodium, and as a result it also increases water excretion. So natriuretic peptide helps in getting rid of both water and both sodium, right? And it decreases aldosterone production, because the main function of aldosterone was to conserve sodium, right? So it increases sodium output, and it decreases the hormone that was actually conserving sodium. So there is a two-way mechanism how sodium excretion is taking place. So water and sodium is excreted, and then the body volume goes down and heart is no longer stretched, right? So this is the concept about natriuretic peptides. So this was all for today. Today we have studied about thirst. We have studied about the hormones that regulate water balance, mainly renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system, and the ADH, the role of ADH, and also natriuretic peptide. We have seen how they act, how aldosterone controls sodium balance and how ADH controls water balance, and how natriuretic peptide controls both sodium and water excretion, right? And we have also seen the importance of angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors as an antihypertensive agent. So I thank you all for your patient hearing. The link to the previous class is there in the description of this video. This is the part 2. Very soon part 3 will also be uploaded, and if you're watching this sometime late after my uploading, maybe the part 3 is already uploaded, and you can also find link of those series of lectures in the video description. This is an ongoing series covering BI competency 6.7, which deals with water balance. If you have listened to the class till now, please type the code word ALDO in the comment section. Aldosterone, ALDO, right? If you write ALDO, I'll know you have focused and paid attention till now. I will see you soon with another video. Till then, bye and take care.